The Tallarico Group has helped CEOs grow their sales and grow their leaders for over a decade. Now, founder and president Bill Tallarico brings you Total Growth, a podcast that explores the challenges of selling, leading, and building great relationships. In this episode, Bill is joined by his partner Matt Rodgers to discuss ways that leaders are adapting to face the challenges of the COVID-19 shutdown.
So thank you for joining us again for another Total Growth podcast. Today, I'm with Matt Rodgers, my partner here at the Tallarico Group, and we're going to be talking today about some of the things we're seeing our clients and happening inside the various industries within which we work, how people are adjusting to the new normal in sales, and what some of these current challenges are bringing to organizations. And Matt, you and I were talking earlier today, and I think you had a great observation that the one thing we're seeing as people head into Q3 and Q4, granted I know we're just entering Q2, but as people are already thinking about how do I hit those Q2, Q3, and Q4 sales numbers, you've been noticing an interesting trend within our clients, and that's around innovation.
Absolutely. We're seeing a lot of innovation inside of our clients in a multitude of ways, whether it's using their product differently, whether it's offering payment terms or different scopes than they haven't been accustomed to. We're seeing people being able, as you said the last time, truly be victors and see this as an opportunity to not only survive this, but thrive after this. And perhaps even open up new market segments and new clientele and customers in different verticals. Absolutely.
One of those clients that we work with that we're very proud of, and they've been in the news lately, is Gecko Robotics, based out of Pittsburgh. And Gecko is the leader in industrial inspection robots. So they create these cool little robots that look a lot like geckos because they sit low to the ground and can go anywhere and are able to scale walls and go places where humans either should not or cannot go during the inspection process. And Gecko has a ton of great engineering talent inside their organization that they've repurposed. And a couple weeks ago, there was a lot of news that came out about them and how their engineers were able to repurpose their time and their focus to design splitters that are able to turn respirators into multi-function or multi-patient respirators. So taking one respirator and putting a splitter on it that allows it to serve actually 4 patients, which is remarkable. You think about an organization like that that's so totally focused on the hyper growth of a young startup company that's able to balance and reposition itself to do that quickly. And Matt, to your point earlier too, we see people who are innovating their service offerings, not necessarily what they do, but how they might be able to do it from a schedule or from scheduling or from scope or from timing. And obviously around everybody's facing price pressures now. So around pricing and payment terms as well, right? And Matt, we were talking about another client earlier who we were working with that had a situation recently where they were talking about this window of opportunity they had and not sure how clients were going to be able to sign and how they were going to be able to win new business in this quarter. And we were able to work through with them to help them understand how cash wasn't as important to them right now as bookings were, because it's an organization that fortunately is ripe with cash and has a unique luxury of not needing to find cash in this quarter, but simply find bookings and their revenue numbers stay up so that they can meet the annual number. And we were able to work through some payment terms with them where they were able to push their payment terms out and offer 180-day or 210-day payment terms, because as long as they had the money in this year, that's what was important, right? Versus needing to go after the cash in this quarter. And it's actually opened up some great opportunities for their salespeople to capture revenue that would have otherwise slipped. Mm-hmm. So,
and I think another thing that I'm seeing, we're talking about how businesses are looking outward, but I also had a conversation today with the CEO, and he asked his group, we're at the early stages of engaging, and said, with everything going on, Are we changing course, or is this just giving us more urgency of where we needed to head and where we're going? And I think this is really putting a microscope internally around sales in three key topics. And those topics that I see separating those people having success versus floundering and not necessarily knowing what to do right now. The first being task clarity. The second, accountability. The third, process. I know a lot of businesses right now that felt like they checked those boxes, but now with all the uncertainty in a new situation, I think it's really shedding light on whether that's true or not. When you think about task clarity, from my perspective, it's very simple. If you ask your salesperson, what does a good week look like? Especially if you don't have a sale. If they're not able to rattle off the different revenue generating activities that they should be doing and those high impact activities that are going to lead to business, lead to building relationships, lead to keeping urgency and momentum in sales cycles, there's not much task clarity.
And Matt, revenue generating activity is a term that's very familiar to you and I and to the clients we work with. But just for those who are listening in and might not be familiar with it, what are some of the revenue generating activities that you're tracking and measuring with your clients?
So I think from a basic level, a lot of it are the regular touch points, whether it's be reaching out, cold calls, emails, whatever that activity is. But I think the second level, and more importantly, we measure clear next steps, right? We talked about before, clear next steps are different than next steps. Every salesperson in the world is great at next steps. Hey, sounds good, call you next week, versus probably makes sense that we connect. How's next week look?
What about driving down to a date and a time?
Exactly. Yeah. And we're a big fan of proposal draft reviews. And sorry, go ahead.
No, that's perfect. I don't mean to cut you off, but you mentioned that setting those clear next steps. Oftentimes that clear next step that we set for next week is a follow-up meeting. And I know that we always talk with clients about some of the most basic revenue generating activities are meetings, right? We like to say sales is still a belly-to-belly sport. And I think you're very good at making sure that clients not only measure the meetings that people are holding, but measure the meetings that people schedule, because the meetings that we hold in a week are more of a lagging indicator, like, hey, I had 5 meetings this week. But if I need to have 5 meetings next week, there's no way it's going to happen unless I schedule 8. So, in these times, I think that it's critical for those who are sales leaders and business owners to be focused on the windshield and not the rear view mirror. Be focused on the windshield of what we're doing for next week and how we're measuring up on scheduling those preparing those meetings and scheduling those meetings so that we know next week can be successful. That's some of that task clarity.
Yeah, and part of that is I see a trap right now for a lot of salespeople, and the difference between being busy and revenue generating activities. There's a little bit more downtime right now. So conversations that I might be having with different executives is that Bob keeps trying to help out in operations, or Bob is greeting people at the door since we remained open and taking packages. Organizations and salespeople that don't have task clarity, they go to try to be busy, right? And so we want to make sure that they have acute target fixation on the next right thing. What we can control today, what we can do now in this moment. And more oftentimes than not, that is go do activity, revenue generating activity, go sell something. You want to know how you can help the business out is going out, having conversations, and attacking sales. That's the best way to help the organization get through this right now.
Yeah, we talked yesterday about how some of those conversations in this time might be more service related, and meaning taking them with a servant's heart versus sales related. So, what does somebody need from us? How can we help them, even if it's not directly related to the service or product that we typically offer to them? How can we help? That's part of that innovation that we see happening within that Victor set, right? Those that decided they're going to be victorious through this versus those who are living in fear and becoming victims to this time. It's interesting you talk about salespeople doing things that aren't necessarily revenue generating, because I think whenever a salesperson doesn't know what to do next, anything looks good. So when I don't know exactly what I should be doing, when I don't know how many meetings I should be holding or what the conversations and the tones of those conversations should be like, and who I should be having them with and when I should be holding them and how many I should have in a day or a week, then just moving fast looks good. And my daughter, Gina, who's 16, I know I've lost control of my household because she has a pet hamster, which to me is a rat. And I get to watch, his name's Chewy, and I get to watch Chewy on the wheel every once in a while. And we'll be standing downstairs in the foyer of our house, and Gina will look at me and say, "You hear Chewy? He's on his wheel upstairs." And we see a lot of salespeople doing that, right? Just moving. They're Chewy on the wheel and they're moving. Know where they're heading, and unfortunately all they're looking for is some guidance and leadership from their leader who needs to coach them through this. And as business leaders, that's what we are, right? We're coaches. We get people to do the things they don't want to do so they can achieve the things they want to achieve. And the most loving thing we could do for our people, this is something we preach all the time, the most loving thing a sales leader can do is help his people, his or her people, be successful. And that means doing the right things, committing to that task clarity, and embracing process, right? Embracing process now versus abandoning the process.
Adapt, don't abandon. That's a mantra that I found that really fits during this time. And following up on that point, and I think we're going to get into accountability. We're big believers of measuring activity, since those are leading indicators versus sales at the end of the month, which is a lagging indicator. Once the month, the quarter, the year's over, there's nothing that we can really do there. So, Bill, tell me this. In these uncertain times, we have task clarity. As sales leaders, how do we hold accountable? What does that rhythm look like of meeting with individuals, since many of us are remote? How do you drive home that accountability as a sales leader?
Yeah, absolutely. We usually talk weekly one-to-ones. We talk about the importance of that weekly one-to-one that's in the form of a stand-up, preferably. We talk about having weekly one-to-ones, and that weekly one-to-one being in the form of a stand-up meeting that's driven and focused and focused on the tasks that we know need to be completed that week so that we can have success. Well, now in these times, you think about what your salespeople look like, right? Most of them are extroverts. They're losing their minds. And when they can't dig in or they can't plug into others, then they tend to wonder. And that's where they become the hamster on the wheel. So we're promoting now within our client base the daily stand-up, right? The daily meeting. We used to call them the check-in and check-out meeting, touching our salespeople twice a day for short periods of time, helping them in the morning set those daily goals, checking in with them at the end of the day on how they did with them. But, we had a client, and I always say clients teach us far more than we teach them. We had a client share the language with us the other day of the launch and land meeting. And so, which I love the visual and I love the alliteration behind that and what it conveys. But having a launch meeting every morning with our sales team about here's what we're going to do today and when we're going to go be successful, and then the landing meeting in the afternoon about where did we end and what's tomorrow going to, how do we start thinking about tomorrow? So, but I think they're critical now. They're critical for the accountability because, you think about a great sales leader now is giving that task clarity. What do you need to do? Those helps their people find freedom by embracing the process and then holding them accountable to the things they said they were going to do. That's the challenge now, right? That's what great sales leaders are doing. That's what the great business owners we work with are doing. And they're the ones that look like they're starting to already position themselves to emerge from this stronger.
And one thing to note, I would say, with the daily check-ins, the launch and the land, I think they should be scheduled, and I think that they should have an agenda. Far too often, sales leaders, especially now in this time, it's very ad hoc. It's checking in when we're in the reason.
And the reason for that is they don't know what to do, right? So when you don't know what to do in the agenda and you don't know what it should look like, then again, what do I do? And we just start talking.
Exactly. So let's have task clarity and set the agenda in the actual meeting. And as you touched on it, I really think it's, what did you achieve? where are we heading? How can I help?
Those are the three. They're the three magic questions that a sales leader can ask his people, whether it's weekly or daily.
Mm-hmm. Because far too often, I find sales managers talk to me and say, hey, I started doing meetings, and I find ourselves with a lot of pauses, talking about the weather, talking about the current situation. Great. Have a moment for that, because innovation's happening. We need to be able to talk about that. But they could be short, sweet. What did you achieve yesterday? Where are we heading? How can I help? It's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. And it keeps them focused and keeps them on task. And we don't want to sound cruel, because there are people too, as we always say, we have to manage the team we have, not the one we want or the ones we were, right? So let's manage the people we have, not the ones we want, which are the perfect ideal salesperson, or the one we were. And you're telling everybody, I didn't need that. I didn't need training, or I didn't need schedules. Okay, well, that's you. But the people you're leading, they need it. And sometimes the people we're leading right now find themselves alone. They might live in an apartment and they have no one, or they might be living with, just a spouse or a roommate, and they have one person they're looking at and talking to all day, and they might just need that connection. And if you have to be emotionally intelligent enough to meet them where they are, which is that servant's heart we take out to people. And if you hear someone on your team kind of struggling and leaning into you and saying, so tell me what's going on with you, or hey, what do you think is going to happen, and you see them searching for some connectedness, give it to them, right? Meet them where they are, help them, lean in, give them what they need at that moment. But remember, your job is to help them be successful, right? That's the greatest gift we can give them, is helping them find success. And if along the way we have to lean into them and allow them to connect with another person, great. We do that.
I heard just the other day, one of the sales leaders with these short meetings, these daily check-ins, he asked, how are you entering the meeting? How are you feeling? Putting that genuine nature. Oh, by the way, actually listening. And if we need to follow up and dig in with some of the examples that you mentioned, that time is right at the beginning of the meeting. Some days there's nothing. Nope, ready to go. And actually, we had a breakthrough with one of our clients. We had a sales manager that was really, really struggling to connect, was one of those individuals that ended up talking about sports, current events, and then when there's 5 minutes left, ask why we're not hitting our numbers. And he introduced an agenda, and he introduced it as, hey, I haven't been positioning you for success as I should. I'd love to bring up an agenda to be efficient and effective and position you for success. The sales team, 3 of them almost fell out of their chair, and they said, thank you so much. We want an agenda. Great. The next couple meetings, some of that personal stuff came out. It was great. It was genuine. He was empathetic, but they were able to achieve so much more staying on task, sticking to the point, and really understanding and having that task clarity of what are we looking to achieve, and ultimately positioning people for success.
That's great. That's a wonderful success story, and watching somebody grow, as we always focus on here in the Total Growth Podcast. It's about growing teams. It's about growing revenue, and that only can happen when we're growing our people. So, Matt, thanks for your time today. Thank you, everyone out there, for listening. If there's anything we can help you with, please visit us at TelericoGroup.com. That's Telerico, Telerico Group.com. Good luck to you guys. Good selling, and God bless.